Hello, everyone. Welcome to the online webinar, Black Sea Grain Conflicting S&D. I'm Julia Feofilova, brand manager at UkrAgroConsult company based in Kyiv, Ukraine. Our team is really glad to be back on track to go online and communicate with the global agricultural industry. We all know the extreme situation that Ukraine is facing right now. Good news is that Kyiv region is now free from the military actions. We all hope that this invasion stops soon and peace returns to our land. Thank you all for your registrations, support, and encouraging messages that we get from all over the globe. Today we have over 400 participants from 61 countries registered to attend. Let me tell a few words to introduce our company. UkrAgroConsult has over 25 years of expertise in agricultural market of Ukraine and Black Sea region. We serve agribusiness operators delivering first-hand market information and analysis for effective decision-making. The company provides a range of services, including subscription to analytical reports on grains, oilseeds, and pulses, food industry, as well as agri-market research, investment consulting, individual projects, and business plans. No doubt, Black Sea market now is a key focus for the agricultural industry and the global importers of grains and veg oils. I'm glad to introduce Sergey Feofilov, Director General of UkrAgroConsult, who will feature this webinar as a speaker. As we received plenty of questions from our audience, half of them will be covered in the presentation, and then we will continue with Q&A. At this point, I pass the word to Sergey and his market outlook.
Well, hi, everybody. Just a couple of movements. I needed to launch my presentation. Well, here we are. Well, hi, everybody, once more. Thanks a lot for your support, for your friendship, for your interest in Ukrainian situation. Ukraine really now is in focus of the global grain market. Well, while preparing this meeting, we understood that three topics are of top interest of our partners, of our audience. First one is export prospects for the 3 months of the current 2021-22 season. Then the next topic, outlook of the spring sowing campaign. And the third topic is logistic issues. My presentation covers the major part of these questions. Well, okay. Estimations, I would like to draw your attention that estimations of Ukrainian grain production and export are critically controversial, and not only for the current 2022, but even for the next 2023 year. And please note, and I will constantly point this out again, all numbers and assumptions are just for today, for April 6th. The situation changes so quickly, so unpredictable, dramatically. So I call you to monitor the Black Sea region, the Black Sea and Ukrainian markets carefully, and well, let's do it together. Well, what is undisputable, it is prominent role of Ukraine in the food markets of key grain importers. This is for Ukrainian wheat. This is Ukrainian contribution to food security of importing countries. As for the corn, well, the same is with sunflower oil export. And please note, all these shares were calculated by UkrAgroConsult team basing on the grain and oil crop production in 2020. And that year production was lower because of unfriendly weather. Grain and oil crop production last year in 21 was record high, and due to that, Ukrainian contribution to curbing the food inflation could be even higher, even greater. Well, okay, just some words about the past developments. Well, 2021 grain production was record high, as I mentioned, more than 85 million tons, with record export potential of about 65 million tons. But by late February, before the military actions started, actually all barley was exported. Wheat export was only 18 million tons, slightly more, and more than 4.6 million tons of wheat were left on Ukrainian territory, and this quantity might be exported. Only half of corn export potential was shipped for the 5 months of the corn season. Due to military actions, economic activity in Ukraine declines. We see a massive population movement, destructions of infrastructure, roads, bridges, warehouses. Well, anyway, agrarian markets have already resumed their activities, though not in full strength. After February 24 and until March 9, grain trade market actually stopped. By the late March, domestic trade recovered, though is still weak. Trade is mostly in small batches from several hundred to several thousand tons of grain. Grain delivery routes are also limited by length, by regions. Well, in March, grain export dropped impressively after the Black Sea ports where activity of the Black Sea ports was stopped, though official numbers of grain export are quite impressive for March. Well, I suppose that the majority of this export really they went through the customs. They were customs cleared, well, but not crossed in physically the borders. And currently, I suppose major part of this export volumes are either on the vessels which are blocked in the Black Sea ports, or they are stored in customs warehouses in the ports or on inland elevators. Well, as for prices, world global grain prices was sharply up after February 24, but in Ukraine, domestic grain prices declined due to falling demand from traders, because export was blocked, and also due to disruption of logistics chains. Now it is interesting trend. Now mid-size and even small exporters are the most dynamic in the market. Their share might increase in the total 2021-22 season export, because mid-size and small exporters are able more quickly to switch their grain stocks from delivery to the Black Sea ports to other destinations by railway and even by trucks. Mid-size and small exporters are now the most promising partners, as the biggest companies were seriously hurt by Black Sea port stopped activity. Well, the same situation is in the oil crops and vegetable oils markets of Ukraine. Drop in export, while export potential is great, and unusually and unprecedentedly great domestic stocks. Well, the next topic is spring plantings. The regions with high military risks are key producers of grain and oil crops. Well, by April 1st, AgMinistry forecast spring area will be at 13.4 million hectares. This is roughly 3.4 million hectares less than last year. By today, planting started all across Ukraine, and even the planting rates are higher in 2022 compared to last year. And farmers also continue fertilization of winter crops. Well, the coming 4 weeks are essential for the sowing campaign, and the Ukrainian farmers dream about peace of their land for sure. And after that, Ukrainian farmers dream about money, fuel, and export to make this sowing going on. Well, traditionally, previously, Ukrainian farmers sell their grain and sunflower stocks in February, March, and after they receive money, they immediately bought fuel and other inputs for spring plantings. Well, but this year, because of the export restrictions, domestic demand and sales of the grain and sunseed stocks decreased considerably, and the cash flow and farmers' revenue dropped also. Anyway, Ukrainian government provides large-scale financing programs at 0 rate for the spring planting, and according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Agriculture, seed supply is sufficient, but fertilizers and fuel supply is lower. It is generally admitted that fuel deficit is the most critical factor of the current spring planting campaign. Well, anyway, general mood of farmers is, even if there is no fertilizers and other inputs, farmers will continue planting crops. Crops will grow in any case. Well, due to great uncertainties, changes in numbers and forecasts, these changes happen every day. UkrAgroConsult proposes to our clients 3 scenarios of grain production in 2022. It is a pessimistic, optimistic, and average basic scenario. And I think that my opinion is that the average scenario is the most likely. Well, in any case, the yields of key grains, of key cereals, are forecasted to be lower due to fuel and other inputs deficit. Well, more details about wheat. Well, two key factors influence wheat production in 2022. First one is sufficient input supply, I've already mentioned, and then, as usual, weather. Though winter was in general quite friendly for winter crops, well, precipitation deficit is seen in eastern and central part of Ukraine. In the western part of Ukraine, precipitation was at level of from 50 to 70% of the multi-year averages. Similar story with barley, with export in the current 2021-22 season, lowest for the 15 years, and 2022 barley production might be at very low levels. Well, corn harvest is under the biggest uncertainties compared to other grains. Firstly, due to military actions in some key corn producing areas. Well, in these areas, as for the last year, from 40 to 45% of corn were produced here. Well, another reason corn is the most sensitive to proper and effective agrarian technology application. Well, another long-term factor is that in the coming months, Ukrainian farmers might receive lower revenues, lower prices for corn compared to other grains, and this might influence their decisions and may promote their switching to other cereals. Well, sunflower production in 2022, UkrAgroConsult forecasts at minimum level for the previous 10 years. Well, soybean area likely will not go down seriously, as almost all as sorry, it is rapeseed in Ukraine. Sorry. Yes, soybean area likely will not go down, as almost all soy production is on the regions, in the regions with lower military risks, lower military activity, and besides this, the biggest soybean crushers are situated also in the western part of Ukraine, and soya meal and demand for soya meal is very high from European countries. Well, rapeseed is in Ukraine is winter crop for 98%, and rapeseed areas are record high for 2022. production, and winter weather was almost ideal for rapeseed. Anyway, about 300,000 hectares of winter rapeseed are in the regions of high military activity. So area to be harvested might be considerably low than planted area. Anyway, rapeseed production in 2022, UkrAgroConsult forecasts at level of 2.6, 2.8 million tons. This is quite in line with the previous 3-5 year averages. This is UkrAgroConsult 3 scenarios. Again, optimistic, pessimistic average in the 3 scenarios of oil sector performance in the current season. Well, minor crops like pulses. The first minor crop by area is feed peas. More than half of feed peas areas are in the regions, again, in risky regions. Well, and UkrAgroConsult forecasts lower area and production decline of feed peas. Well, please note all these numbers are not officially prepared. These numbers are estimations of UkrAgroConsult together with the Ukrainian Pulses Association. Well, and we suppose that this year Ukrainian farmers will prefer to plant the cheapest in cultivation crops, cheapest in cultivation and cost-saving crops, including chickpeas and lentils. The next key topic is logistics and the disruptions of export logistics delivery chains. Well, Ukraine traditionally exported 96% of grain by seaports, by vessels, but currently exporters have to develop alternative routes, and only among the Ukrainian seaports, only 2 continue to work, continue their activity, and they are able to export Ukrainian grain. This is Reni and Ismail ports. They are located on Danube River, but their capacities are insignificant, though they have a potential to increase their capacity. But anyway, the capacities of these 2 river ports, mixed river and seaports, are incomparable with the deep water ports of big Odessa and Nikolaev and Mariupol. Danube ports account for about 30% of grain exports. The main trend now in grain export logistics is a sharp increase in railway shipments through western borders of Ukraine. Grain delivery by rain, share of grain delivery, grain export by railways now is more than 70%. and physically it is possible to export through the railways about 30,000 metric tons of grain and oilseeds per day. Well, other possible channels for grain export are ports of Gdynia, Gdańsk in Poland, and also port of Constanza in Romania, and even some ports in the Baltic countries. Grain could be delivered to these ports also by railways. Another option, grain export by railway containers with the usage of different transport modes. Grain may be delivered from inland elevators to Ismail ports. Then containers will be loaded on river barges and delivered to Constanza for further loading on vessels. Well, this option is rather complicated. Well, but growing grain prices decrease share of logistic costs in the prices paid by end users, and it is for Ukrainian grain market currently is very important to exploit, to use any possibility to increase export and to as domestic stocks are unusually, unprecedentedly high. Well, this is a summary. Please consider this summary of new logistic chains which are now under active development. Well, so actually this is all my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to develop cooperation with you. I will be happy to monitor the markets. Currently, markets are of great volatility, and to monitor them, to help you making the best and the most effective decisions. Well, so thank you very much for your attention. Let's start answer to your questions.
Sergey, thank you very much for your presentation. A number of key questions were covered already, but we have some more on the list, so we will switch to the Q&A. But before we do, I'd like to tell our audience that you're welcome to get a free demo of our daily and weekly market reports, as well as an online analytical platform, AgriSub. This will allow you to track the Black Sea market and receive the latest reliable data and forecasts. You can find more details by clicking on the links below the video screen. So we are starting the questions and answers. Sergey, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question. Sergey, how do you estimate a potential loss in corn productivity in 2022 and 23?
Well, UkrAgroConsult outlook for the 2022 corn harvest vary from 19 to 20 million tons. Well, market operators estimate corn production higher. Some of them put the corn harvest in coming corn harvest at 23, even 24 million tons. Well, okay, again, this is the current situation. Well, corn is rather capital incentive crop, and the Ukrainian farmers have to save money in the coming months. Well, the money will be paid to restore broken equipment, to buy spare parts for humanitarian purpose. Well, so farmers may switch to another cereals. So we put our corn production forecast in 2022 at between 19 and 20 million tons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sergey. The next question is, what are conditions of sunseed crop and crushing activity during the war?
Last year, Ukrainian sunseed harvest was record high at 16.5 million tons. Well, and by late February, only 10 million tons of sunseed were crushed. Well, so we estimate sunseed stocks by 1st of March at level of 6.5, even 7 million tons. This is very high stocks, and they pressure the domestic prices. And the overwhelming majority of Ukrainian crushers stopped because of the events, because of the military risks. And this situation will pressure the behavior of Ukrainian farmers and their decisions. Well, anyway, our forecast is that sunflower area this year could decrease considerably, really considerably, and also sunseed yields will be lower because of deficit of some inputs. Well, so our forecast varies between 10 and 12 million tons of sunflower. This is harvest of 2022, and you see, due to high ending stocks, the total supply of sunflower for the new season, which starts in September 2022, will be at level of the at average level of the previous years, at level of between 15 and 16 million tons. Thank you.
The next question. Have Ukrainian port elevators or other infrastructure been damaged significantly by the Russia?
According to official information, official data, less than 10 elevators were inland elevators were damaged in March. Well, the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine said that port infrastructure was damaged by a size of $5 billion. Well, to indicate in details each damaged plant or each damaged berth or other items is not possible due to as military actions continue. So let's wait for the soonest over of this situation, and after that it will be more clear the size of the damage.
Thank you. What is the extent of damage to the export supply chain from inland storage, transportation, and loading facility in port silo?
Logistics currently is much more complicated compared to the even a month or 6 weeks ago. Firstly, fuel prices went up. Then it is necessary to develop new logistic corridors, mainly deliveries by railways to western borders of Ukraine, and through the railway deliveries to deliver the grain to European ports and then to other markets. So this work is now very active, as I'd like to repeat, the domestic stocks are high, and I suppose that at least in 3-4 weeks, the situation in logistics might improve considerably.
Okay, another question about logistics. Has a pool of potential carriers of agri-products been already formed for exports by land through the western border of the country? Or is such a register of carriers being formed at the moment?
No reports of official creation of a pool of logistic companies. Anyway, we know a number of forwarders. They have already developed new rules through the western borders, but again, mainly for a comparatively small grain parcels. Well, step by step, this situation improves, and as I've already mentioned, we expect that by early May the logistic situation may improve.
Thank you. What is the situation with sunflower sowing, and could trade shift to other wage oil in case the war is prolonged?
Thank you for this question. It is much I need to repeat much of what I've already said. We forecast a rather considerable decrease in sunflower areas due to, as these areas are situated in the regions of high military risks in eastern, in northern and southern parts of Ukraine. This is the first negative effect of the current situation, and the next one, a good news is that we project sunseed ending stocks will be very high. So the total sunseed supply by the start of the new season will be quite at average level of the previous years. Thank you.
Okay, the next question. How do you see the agri price trend, the capacity, stocks, and challenges that happen at this moment?
You see, it is very unusual, unprecedented discrepancy between the global price trends and domestic price trends. Global prices move up, domestic values move down. High volatility of and uncertainties of crop of grain production and grain export and logistic chains, all this is create very nice opportunities for speculations. You see closet domestic Ukrainian market and lack of deficit make Ukrainian domestic prices going down. So under these conditions, we recommend you hurry up to buy very cheap Ukrainian wheat and to buy wheat immediately now, but only within Ukrainian territory. And it will be much more difficult and much more costly to deliver those wheat parcels to the target markets. Anyway, there is sufficient storage capacities in Ukraine, but if grain export is blocked until July, arrival of new crop wheat and barley, this may generate problems with their storage as ending stocks of grain in Ukraine of the current season are projected very high.
Thank you. Next question. Is it possible to import products from Ukraine under the current conditions, or when will it become possible?
You see, it is quite possible to import grain and oil crops from Ukraine, but again, only small parcels and to pay more costs for logistics. So, how quickly would it be possible to ship grain from Ukrainian seaports? Well, it is unfortunately unpredictable. Everybody hopes that it will be very soon, maybe in some weeks later. But still, it is very unpredictable. New logistic corridors are under development now. Railways to Poland, to Baltic countries. Well, but again, it takes some time, sufficient time to develop all of that new corridors.
Which probable ways and direction of grain exports development do you see?
Well, again, in the nearest times, at least a couple of months, deliveries of grain export by railways will be number one in export activity of any traders. Well, as I already mentioned, only two comparatively small ports are now under operation. It is Ismail and Reni. Anyway, the biggest international and Ukrainian exporters intend currently to export more than 1 million tons through those Danube ports. The grain will be delivered to Romania, to port of Constanza, and then exported delivery to the target markets.
Thank you, Sergey. The next question is, outside of energy issues, have there been any crush plants destroyed by the war?
Not easy to answer to this question. No any officially stated information and officially confirmed or confirmed by owners that any crushing plant was ruined. Well, again, there is lots of rumors, lots of not rumors, but reliable information that circulate among the trade community about the damages. Well, but still this is not confirmed, and I prefer not to inform you about this unconfirmed information. What I can comment answering to your question is really some biggest and most effective crushing plants are situated in the regions, in the southern regions and eastern regions of Ukraine, where military risks are very high. I prefer to have more reliable sources, more reliable confirmations.
Okay, thank you, Sergey. We have some more questions. What is an estimated spring plantings potential as of today? Will corn and sunseed be planted on time?
Yes, according to Ukrainian Agrarian Ministry, Ministry of Agrarian Policy of Ukraine, 2022 spring planted area will be at least by 3.5 million hectares lower compared to last year, due to ongoing military actions. Weather unusually long spring this year promoted that actually all spring works, all spring plantings will be done in the best terms if input supply is sufficient. Well, yesterday I have talks with the association, with the chairman of Farmer Association in one of the central regions of Ukraine, and I was told that in fact they in that region spring field works will be done well as usual, something like that.
Okay, and what is the situation with barley sowings in 2022?
Barley currently is rather attractive for Ukrainian farmers, as barley is one of the cheapest cereals for in production. So by April 1st, 330,000 hectares of spring barley were sown. And about 1 million hectares of winter barley were sown last autumn. And barley planting rates are even higher compared to last year. So I think that barley production might be not so negatively affected, not so greatly negatively affected as other cereals. Well, but again, the reports might be renewed, and we need some time to estimate better the barley production prospects in 2022.
Thank you. Do you know what percentage of Ukrainian wheat production has been prevented from exporting?
Last year, winter grain harvest was record high, but only 18 million tons of Ukrainian wheat, slightly more than 18 million tons, were exported until end of February. So we suppose that at least between 4.5 and 5 million tons are left in Ukraine as exportable stocks. Well, currently, Ukrainian government changes its export policy. Previously, Ukrainian government in fact stopped issuance of wheat export licenses, but according to the latest news, the export licenses again started to be issued, and this is rather expiring information for exporters. So very soon we will have to renew our supply demand of wheat, which were previously made by April 1st, and that supply demand was made basing on actually full stop of wheat export. So in the nearest time, we will report to our customers the updated, the renewed supply demand for wheat, including the numbers of wheat export.
Thank you, Sergey. And we have the last question. Can the shipments of grains and veg oils to Asia and the Middle East be arranged through Turkey, Poland, and Bulgaria?
Currently, forwarders and logistic companies focuses more on development logistic corridors through the western borders of Ukraine, and deliveries by railway and by river to port of Constanza and to ports of Gdańsk, Gdynia in Poland and other Baltic countries. As for export through Turkish ports and through other Asian and Middle East countries, well, I suppose these possibilities are not yet under consideration. Well, but I do not think it is highly likely. Well, but who knows in this time of high uncertainties. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey. Thank you for your detailed answers. Many thanks to our audience for their great questions. Regarding those questions sent during the webinar and which were not covered, we will include them in our follow-up email, a brief summary of the webinar. Thanks again for your participation. Hope for future successful cooperation in the nearest times. Stand for Ukraine. Це буде Україна. Bye-bye. До побачення.
Thank you very much. Hope for further contacts and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.